rich, the soldier said. Maybe you can, she said. I can help you. The old woman told him to refuse wine at dinner and pretend to fall asleep while he was keeping watch. She offered him a magic cloak that would conceal him while he followed the princesses. The next morning, after a good night's rest, the soldier rode to the castle and presented himself to the king. He would begin that night after the feast. At dinner, the princesses watched his wine glass carefully, but he was prepared. He put a sponge beneath his chin and let it soak up the wine as he pretended to drink. When the princesses retired, he took his post in their bedroom, resting on a chair to keep watch. Soon they all fell asleep, and the soldier closed his eyes to pretend to do the same. When all had fallen silent, the oldest daughter tiptoed out of bed to check on the soldier. Just like the others, she whispered. Then she gave the signal to her sisters to get ready. They all dressed in their finest gown and put on their dancing shoes. I have a bad feeling about this, the youngest said. She checked on the soldier one more time, but he appeared to be sound asleep. The oldest daughter knocked 3 times on her headboard, and the entire bed sank below the floor. One by one, they filed into the darkness below. Quickly, the soldier put on his invisible cloak and followed them, careful to not make a sound. Once they were below ground, the sisters teetered about the evening ahead, talking about the men they couldn't wait to see. The tunnel ended in a flight of stairs that opened into a wide boulevard. The path was lined with golden trees that shone in the moonlight. The soldier plucked a leaf from the hanging branches so he might show it to the king. Did you hear that? The youngest asked. It's just the trumpets announcing the princess's arrival, the eldest said. The boulevard ended at a lake with a large castle in view. On the lake, there were 12 boats, each with a prince waiting. The princesses each had fancied a prince, and one by one they got into the boats. The soldier jumped into the last boat with the youngest princess. Why does the boat seem heavier tonight? The prince asked. Maybe it's the weather, the girl suggested. Inside the castle, a grand ball awaited with music and dancing. Each princess danced with her prince. So that's the guard pretending to be asleep. Everyone danced song after song until the clock chimed 3. At 3, the music ended, and the princess escorted them out of the castle and back into the boats. The princesses looked tired but disappointed to end the night. The soldier jumped into the boat with the eldest princess, but she was too distracted to notice the extra weight. They waved goodbye to their princes and a promise to return the next night. They crossed the boulevard lined with golden trees and walked back through the tunnel. As they neared the light at the other end, the soldier raced ahead of them and jumped back into his chair, pretending to be asleep once again. I don't think we have to worry about this one, the eldest daughter said when they returned to their room. When morning arrived, the soldier decided he didn't want to miss out on the fun the princesses were having by turning them in. He lied to the king and said that he slept the whole night. The next 2 nights, he once again followed the princesses. On the last night, as they danced, he took an empty goblet from the table, adding it to his collection of proof. The morning after the 3rd night, the king arrived, ready to sentence the soldier to death. The soldier told the king everything: the tunnel below the headboard, the trees that shone like gold, the 12 princes, and the ball that awaited them. The princesses realized they had been caught, and he confessed that what he said was true. The soldier chose the eldest daughter to marry, and they were married that same day with all 11 princesses as attendees. Well, I never heard that story. Hi, Kinley. Hi, Miss Doge. So now the ugly duckling. So I would have to say my biggest takeaway from that book, I really didn't expect it to end that way, but my biggest takeaway is, every adult has heard this: whatever you do in the dark comes to light. There's never any secrets. Somebody always sees you. Somebody always knows. So it's best to be transparent, tell the truth, and do the right thing, even if no one is looking. The ugly duckling. A mother duck sat on her nest of eggs, waiting for them to hatch so she could show them the world. One by one, the duckling poked their beaks through the spotted shells and opened their eyes. Look at this bright, beautiful world, another said. Just wait, my ducklings. I'll bring you to the garden and show you how big and beautiful this world really is. Darman teaches us that. That's a good lesson, Mike. Just wait, my ducklings. I'll bring you to the garden and show you how big and beautiful this world really is. So here's her and her baby. It's got a black beak, but not that ugly. It's not ugly at all. The mother duck and her new ducklings sat and waited. There was still one more egg to hatch. This egg was larger than the rest and dark brown. There's something wrong with that one, a duckling said. Yes, let's just leave it behind, said another. I bet it's a turkey egg. Just then, the brown egg cracked and a beak pushed its way out. The duckling stuck his head out. He had long legs and brown fur. He looked at his duckling brothers and sisters who were yellow and fuzzy. But the mother duck knew these were all her ducklings. She had sat on the nest and never took her eyes off of it. Come along, children, she said. She led them all to the garden pond. They followed her and dived right into the water, paddling into a line behind her. Well, that settles it, she thought. A turkey wouldn't be able to swim. He must be my child, just a little different looking. The mother duck taught her ducklings to swim and quack. The ugly duckling tried to quack, but his sound came out wrong. Who is that? And what is he doing here? A passing duck asked the mother duck. He just stayed in the egg too long, the mother duck said. He wasn't properly formed. Every morning, the mother duck brought her ducklings to the pond to practice swimming, diving and quacking. Every morning, the ugly duckling was made fun of by his brothers and sisters and all of the other duck neighbors. They called him names and pecked at his wings. One night, when everyone else curled up to sleep, the ugly duckling sneaked away. He didn't want to belong to a family that was so mean to him. After wandering throughout the whole night, he came upon a group of wild ducks. He jumped into their pond and tried to blend in. Excuse me, the ugly duckling said as politely as possible. What are you? A nearby duck said. The duck was much bigger than the ugly duckling and had already started growing his feathers. I'm a duckling, just like you. Sure ugly, the littlest one said, and everyone laughed. Look around you, the father duck said. You don't belong in this family. Then they all turned their backs on him. The ugly duckling left the wild ducks in the pond and kept walking. Next, he came upon a group of geese. The gooselings were gray, like he was. You're pretty ugly, a gooseling said to him. The ugly duckling thought these geese were going to be just as mean as the other ducks. But then the father goose spoke up. Stay, new friend, he said. You are welcome to join our family. The ugly duckling was pleased. He didn't mind looking different from everyone else as long as they didn't tease him. A few days passed, and the ugly duckling was getting used to living with the geese. Until one morning when a spotted dog came running through the reeds, and started barking at him. The geese spread their wings and flew away as quickly as possible, but a hunter was waiting nearby and shot at them. The dog came to where the ugly duckling was sitting and passed right by. For once, the ugly duckling was glad he was funny looking. At least the hunter didn't want anything to do with him. And the melee of the hunter's attack, the ugly duckling hid in the reeds and then ran away unnoticed. By now, the ugly duckling had grown some feathers and he could fly a few feet off the ground. He flew a few miles from the geese and got caught in a storm. He took shelter under the cover of a cottage. An old woman with squinting eyes saw the duckling through her window. She stuck her head out the doorway to get a better look. Is that a duck? She said. The ugly duckling was glad to be called a duck without any mention of him looking different. The old woman welcomed him inside. She hoped that the duck would give her eggs to eat. The ugly duckling spent all of his autumn inside the old woman's cottage. Every morning she would come to his spot in the corner. And ask, any eggs yet? There were never any eggs. When the first snow fell, the old woman had had enough. She was tired of feeding a useless duck. There's something wrong with you, duck, she said, then shoot him out the door. The ugly duckling spent the winter huddled in an old log. He was very cold and very lonely. When spring came and the snow melted, he set out to find a pond in which to swim. The nearest pond was occupied by a family of swans. The ugly duckling was mesmerized by them. They were beautiful and elegant as they glided through the waters. In that moment, the ugly duckling wished that these regal birds would just kill him now. He'd rather be killed by them than pecked and ridiculed by ducks or have to keep living alone. Just kill me, he shouted. The swans approached him with their wings outstretched. He awaited death, but it didn't come. Come join us, friend, the swan said. Join them. He took a few steps closer, and then he caught his reflection in the water. Staring back at him was an elegant white bird with a long regal neck. A swan. The ugly duckling, now a beautiful swan, ran toward his new family. He was glad he experienced the cruelty and disappointment in his life. It had made him appreciate his happy new life that much more. He swam behind his fellow swans to the other end of the pond where children were throwing crumbs into the water. I want to give my crumbs to this one, the child said, pointing at the once ugly duckling. He's the most beautiful swan of all. So this book is pretty much what I heard, but the lesson in it now. So boys and girls, my lesson in this book, The Ugly Duckling, the second story that I read is sometimes our beauty is skin deep and people look at our outer beauty and don't get to know us. And you know what? Him being called ugly never made him mean or bitter. He just kept going until he found his people, his tribe, those that saw the good in him. And sometimes we depend on others to determine what we should think about ourselves. And their perception is not always right. So we need to know, we need to self-reflect like he did and see what the good that was in him, that's just a few saw, that he could see it too. So guys, those are two great stories. Well, this finishes our book. I'll be bringing authors back next week. So share when I do post it. I am hopeful that I'll get this author that sent me a book a while back from Russia, which is pretty nice to have people from out of the country. So guys, remember, I have a message. Let me look at this message. I was that duck. Oh, Pancho, let me tell you a secret. I was that duck for a very long time. And I'll tell you this, Pancho, I'm still that duck. That's why I have to keep myself around positive people, because I'll go back to that ugly duckling and regress in a New York second. No matter how many people tell me the good, the human part of us wants to hang on that one little bad thing that one person out of billions and billions of people said. If I could actually internalize that it's just one compared to billions. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Remember, if nobody else tells you, Dr. George loves you. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back next Tuesday, 7:30. Love you guys. Have a great evening. Good night. Oops, got another message. Wow, what a life lesson. It's been something. Yep, it has, Miss Rochelle, and thank you for being here. It is. So, guys, remember, love you guys. Thanks for your support. As long as you're here, I'll keep reading. And even when you can't make it, you'll come back and I will have read a book. Love you guys. Good night.